So, it's October, and after doing 2 research-heavy videos, today I want to talk about something that's a little easier to just vibe with. And that'd be a few of my favorite PS1 inspired indie games. To begin, I'll admit, I'm no horror buff. The first time I recall a game scaring me was Namco Museum. I'm serious. The huge empty halls and the PS1 textures warping around me gave me an odd sense of unease I hadn't felt before. From there, I didn't really have the guts to pursue horror. The next one I tried was Five Nights at Freddy's, and that didn't go past night 2.
What? I thought that was from Mario Wonder.
Oh, no!
Rip Bozo!
Did his family die? You sounded like actually distraught over that.
I got scared! And after that was Resident Evil, where the zombie groans in the first area scared me so bad I Alt F4'd. But in 2020, right as lockdown began, I saw a game online that somehow brought me right back to when I played Namco Museum as a child. It was called The Convenience Store. The Convenience Store is an indie horror game developed by 2 brothers who go by the name Chilla's Art. PS1 inspired short-form horror is their specialty, and if you've heard of them, it's most likely for either this game or The Closing Shift. The convenience store begins with you controlling an unnamed girl getting ready for the night shift at the convenience store just outside of her small Japanese village. Since it's such a small town, the manager hands you the keys and leaves you as the sole employee to complete chores and service the customers, all the while experiencing strange happenings as the nights go on. And that's the game's premise. Every day you return to work, taking care of your duties until your shift is over. It sounds simple because, well, it is simple. The convenience store, as well as the games I'll be talking about later, are widely considered walking simulators, in that your primary way of interacting with the world is simply exploring it. But I think walking sim is a bit reductive. This sort of setup where the actions you can take are limited adds a lot to the experience of a horror game. Even in the first couple minutes, leaving your apartment and traversing the dimly lit town while approaching this luminous yet sterile beacon of light establishes a certain atmosphere of dread for the convenience store that builds itself very well. It's fairly common for this type of game to be hit or miss for a player due to its appeal relying on the player's sense of patience, but I'm one of the people that enjoys it. I think forcing the player to just sit and exist as a part of the game's world on its own terms is an excellent way to build suspense. You just have to soak in the silence wondering, was that guy you ran into on the way into work warning you of something? Or just spouting nonsense? All of the NPCs in this game have a lumbering way of walking, in addition to their dialogue being a toss-up between being awkward at best or threatening at worst. Admittedly, with the screen filters off, the NPCs do look a little Max Payne-y, but with the filters on, it's hard to tell what their faces really look like, making interactions with them feel uncertain and dreamlike. While on the topic of visuals, the graphical style does a lot to add to the overall feeling of otherworldliness evoked by the titular locale. This game stuck out to me because it was the first game I ever saw that tried tapping into those feelings I first experienced while playing Namco Museum. The low-resolution textures and CRT filters, along with the harsh artificial lighting, evokes a unique feeling of loneliness. Like something should be happening, but isn't. And when something does happen, it makes it all the more unsettling. The convenience store is ultimately an experience that doesn't have a very satisfying payoff, but what it lacks in narrative impact is made up for by a very finely crafted atmosphere. I'd say that barring the good ending, I enjoyed just about everything this game had to offer. I think games like The Convenience Store are a great way to get into the horror genre. It's got a low barrier for entry both in a monetary sense and psychologically. Since I knew going in that the game was going to be short, I convinced myself that I could tough it out for at least an hour. Coming out the other side, I was ready for another horror game, leading to the next game I want to talk about, Paratopic. Paratopic is an experimental indie horror game featuring a story with an obfuscated timeline and confusing perspectives. I love this game. The game begins with the first character, who I'll refer to as the smuggler. She's being interrogated by a border patrol officer who, in the absence of any cameras or supervision, threatens to watch some tapes you were illegally carrying across the border. He ignores your warnings and walks back to his office. Right as the TV's lights flicker on, the game hard cuts to the opening credits as seen from a diner window where a crow can be seen picking at the entrails of a dead body. A conversation begins between the second character, the assassin, and an unknown character discussing a maid service. Once they've finished talking, you pick up the revolver on the table and load the gun, one bullet at a time. The game hard cuts again to another booth in the same diner. This time, you're playing as the smuggler talking with a character presumed to be some sort of a dealer, obsessed with his idea of professionalism. He appears angry with you. Apparently on your last job, not all of the goods had been delivered. The game hard cuts one final time. And... ooh my god, I love this intro so much. It manages to throw so many little things into your field of view that make you ask a million questions before hard cutting to another scenario that will clear up absolutely nothing. Right out of the gate, the game introduces you to the odd pace at which gameplay and dialogue occur. The other characters just can't seem to sit still, their textures warping as they talk to you. The game does have voice acting, but all the lines are so garbled that you can barely make out the words they're saying, which makes dialogue feel almost inhuman. The game continues in a very similar fashion to that of the intro. You'll play through a section until the game decides you've had enough, and will hard cut to the next one. Now, I really don't want to spoil anything beyond the intro, but a large portion of this game is driving as the smuggler. And you know what these scenes remind me of? Nearly getting into a car crash. I know that's maybe a little extreme, but it reminds me of the time right after a near miss, where the adrenaline is wearing off and your brain is trying its best to calm down. When that happens to me, I can't listen to music, I can't focus on a podcast. I just have to shut off all my audio and drive, listening to the hum of the engine and the rushing of blood in my ears. And Paratopic captures that feeling exactly for me. I'd say that evoking these types of feelings through almost entirely audio is Paratopic's strongest point. It'll have these stressful moments where the background music will sound like a cacophony of noise, until it slowly forms itself into a consistent melody. It really is something else. In the best way possible, Paratopic feels like someone managed to record their fever dream and then scramble the tape. It constantly makes you ask questions and then rips you away right before you can grasp an answer. Now, I'm going to stop myself here because if I say anything else, I risk spoiling a game that I think is best gone into blind. So, I'll jump right on to my final game, Fatum Betula. Fatum Betula, unlike my previous two titles, isn't a horror game. It begins with your character appearing in a sanctuary-like area with no possessions except for a cryptic letter describing a girl's encounter with a manifestation of the air itself at the end of a stone path. After ascending some stairs, you see a birch tree floating above a path in some water. Upon reaching the end, two eyes and a row of teeth manifest from the darkness. Upon approach, the creature informs you that the world you're residing in and the birch tree above you are one and the same, and that this world is somewhere between life and death, held in stasis by the water maintaining the tree. This place has no past or future. The only one with the power to change that is the player. The beast gives you 3 vials and allows you to do whatever you see fit with one warning: don't feed it with what you bleed. Now the game truly begins. You're free to go and do whatever you want. Feeding the tree will grant this world a fate, as described in its ending cutscene. I love this game's atmosphere. Fatum Betula was developed primarily by one guy, Bryce Booker. The game actually only lists 5 people in the proper credits, which is insane to me that Booker created such an amazing world almost entirely by himself. From the intro animation of a CD spinning to the pre-rendered menus, this game just gets it. There's so many small aspects of the game that contribute to it being a love letter to the way the PS1 renders these imaginary worlds. Like, hell, it even features the PS1's trademark texture warping and dithering. It's just dripping with a passion for that era of graphics. In addition, the music is a beautiful complement to the graphical style. The soundtrack was composed by Simone Peltier, who created a subtle but fitting sound for this game. The music gives the world a sense of peace, yet melancholy, since as long as the player doesn't interfere, this world will persist as it does forever. But isn't existing without ever having to change a depressing fate? The gameplay itself consists of the player exploring the world and helping or hurting the various inhabitants to find more liquids to feed the tree. With every item you collect, you can unlock more and more of the world around you by solving puzzles, which comes with more opportunities to find secrets, items, and new faces. One of my favorite characters is this cat in the main hub world. He's starving and really wants something to eat, but there's a lot you can choose to feed him and multiple different rewards that will result from the choice you make, all of which lock you into that one scenario. You can also choose to feed him a very specific item that locks you out of almost all of the game's endings. Seriously. That's another aspect of Fatum Betula that I really enjoy. It knows when to take itself seriously, but it also recognizes that even in the face of being trapped in an unchanging purgatory, life's funny, man. It's got a lot of little lines and interactions that just make me chuckle. It adds a bit of hope to this sweet little world. Fatum Betula covers a lot of themes in its runtime, and even though if you go looking you can find the dev expressing doubt over their writing abilities, I think it manages to say a lot of succinct yet profound things about many aspects of the human experience, and I can't express enough how much I love it. Of course, I'd recommend all of these games, but if you try any of them, I really think you should play Fatum Betula. For how lovingly crafted the game is, I think it's been sorely overlooked and deserves a lot more people getting to experience it.
Oh, Kirby, you have Wonder yet?
I have COVID.
Oh, never
Coming
mind.
up.
Hey, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of this style of video. I want to try something different, you know? I definitely want to do other research-heavy videos like my previous two, but I also want to try things where it's just me sharing cool things about games and my opinion on the matter. So, thanks again, and have a good night.